I will take this opportunity to thank for this invitation to talk at the 64th annual meeting of the Subtropical Plant Science Society. Learning to live with HLB. HLB, or Huang Long Bing, or the citrus greening disease, is a serious bacterial problem in Florida. Together with the hurricanes and a bad economy, this disease has reduced the citrus acreage in Florida from 900,000 acres to just 600,000 acres. Moreover, it is reducing the morale of the citrus industry. This tiny bacterium and the insect vector together threaten a $13 billion citrus industry in the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to analyze the HLB situation and submit to you that there is hope rather than perhaps hoping for a better future in spite of the circumstances. In my talk, I want to analyze 7 specific topics. Look at the current HLB situation in Florida, scenario in China and India where HLB is prevalent, how we dealt with the 2 human viruses in the past, HIV and the swine flu. Bring to your attention the citrus tristacea virus situation in Florida today. Show you what our scientists, the governments, research laboratories and the citrus industry are doing to control HLB. Look at innovations in citrus, including one of my own from Texas. Share lessons from Washington apples to watches made in Switzerland. And at the end of this talk, I want to leave you with hope, a lot of hope. HLB hit a panic button in Florida for obvious reasons. Many people in Texas, Arizona, California and Washington DC feel the panic waves coming out of Florida citrus industry. There is no doubt that this is a serious disease, but what can we do? We have to learn to live with it whether we like it or not. There is no option. The reason I show you a cartoon bacterium here and not a real bacteria is because we do not know much about the morphology of this bacterium. It is a difficult one to culture even in the most sophisticated research laboratories in the world. But we know a lot about the genes of this bacterium, and that is interesting. We have citrus growers in Florida that have removed thousands, perhaps even more than 1 million trees altogether in Florida, are beginning to accept the fact that because of HLB, growing citrus trees for long-term profit like for 50 years is no longer possible. The Florida citrus growers are beginning to realize that perhaps they have to grow citrus on a short-term basis, plant more trees per acre and make dollar returns faster. It makes sense. But when you plant short-term orchards, you have to plant more trees per acre. It costs a lot of money to plant more trees per acre as we practice today. The citrus growers are looking for immediate help from the scientists. Yes, there are promising news from our entomologists that showed methods to control the insect vector through efficient chemical sprays, area-wide psyllid control, dormant sprays, and the use of biological control. So, the good news is that there is promising news for efficient vector control. We can win half the battle, especially if a strategy is used to protect the young citrus from psyllids. So the take-home message here is that we know how to control HLB vector. Some scientists are trying to introduce disease resistance in citrus trees via molecular techniques. This is an approach that will take years, especially with the fruit trees like citrus that will take many years to produce fruits. So the take-home message is that there may be help from the molecular techniques, but not within a decade or even more. The citrus growers need an immediate and very practical solution. Our citrus horticulturists are experimenting with the high-density planting. There are some citrus growers in the country that have mastered high-density planting even before HLB, but not many people know about it. Ladies and gentlemen, this is an avenue we need to utilize. Projects like improving citrus plant health via innovative irrigation, fertilization, pesticides are practiced by some growers. They show promises. Now I want to take you to India and China. Both are overpopulated countries, Both have citrus, and in fact India and China are the centers of origin of citrus. They have HLB. In both countries, HLB is at least a century old, whereas HLB in America is less than a decade old. In both India and China, there are good and bad citrus orchards. There is evidence that the Chinese used high-density planting to mitigate loss from HLB, and this was started even before they had access to modern chemicals and modern technology. India is the same way. So why such a panic in Florida? The answer is that it is a new disease. The impact of a new disease is high. Moreover, HLB hit Florida when the Florida citrus industry was hit by hurricanes. Both the bacterium and the psyllid are new to the Florida ecosystem. Give it some time. Let them adapt to the Florida ecosystem. You may see a reduced impact after some time. I like to draw your attention to the citrus crustacea virus in Florida. Crustacea is a destructive virus disease of citrus that is spread by brown citrus aphid. This particular aphid was detected in Florida in 1995. 15 years later, the incidence of crustacea has not changed as expected. The brown citrus aphid population, though, is under control. This is a good time for me to bring the example of two human virus diseases, the HIV that causes AIDS disease and H1N1 that causes the swine flu. 1980s, the country welcomed the new Reagan administration, but at the same time, there were many AIDS-affected people dying. The medical community, the scientists, and the Centers for Disease Control were not sure how to handle the situation effectively, especially when medical providers themselves were in fact afraid of treating HIV-infected patients comfortably. Look at the situation today. With the proper education, medicine, and technology, today HIV-infected people live longer. In fact, medical sciences show that HIV-infected people may live 20 years longer today compared to the 1980s. Now let us look at a recent human virus disease, the H1N1 virus or the swine flu. This also hit a panic button. It was real. Many people died. H1N1 is real. There was a time the whole world was wearing masks. Today, at least we have H1N1 vaccine. The point I want to make is that the problem is real, but we came out of the initial big fear factor. It is true in human history that adversities and successes are not everlasting. And that is my next point. The citrus industry was operating in a comfort zone for many years with no major changes. Whereas the apple industry made a paradigm shift in the 1980s when it went into ultra-high density planting. I have seen it myself in the 80s when I was a faculty member at the Washington State University. They made great success. They like it. I'm fascinated by their success. The citrus industry did not make a paradigm shift. The citrus industry is actually 25 years behind the apple industry in terms of high density planting. Now I want to take you to Switzerland. In the early 1970s, or when Richard Nixon was in power, Switzerland was the world leader in watchmaking. Every household in the whole world had Swiss-made watches. Swiss watch was the epitome of quality and perfection. The country with 90,000 watchmakers was in a comfort zone. Here comes a tiny crystal, quartz. Quartz was introduced into the watch industries in both Switzerland and Japan. The very successful Swiss watch industry ignored quartz. Japan took it. So also Timex in America took it. Seiko and Timex produced watches that are cheaper and better. From 90,000 watchmakers, Switzerland fell to 30,000 watchmakers in a few years' time. The Swiss watch industry was comfortable. They didn't care for a change. They did not see a need for a paradigm shift when quartz came. The watch money went to Seiko. If you ask a citrus grower to change to ultra-high density planting, the typical answer is it is going to be difficult because of equipment. I want to show you an analogy. This clamp represents 50 years of a long-term citrus lifespan. I want it to be reduced to 10 or 15 years. The citrus growers have no tool to reduce the size. I can show you a tool, but you have to do the work. The tool is a simple screwdriver. The citrus growers have to pick up the screwdriver, turn it clockwise, and observe the result. Now I want to introduce my quartz of the citrus industry, that is the microbudded citrus, as a tool for change. I started microbudding citrus in the 1990s. My thanks to Dr. John Pusey, a retired citrus horticulturist in Texas, who gave me a hallway talk on the importance of high-density planting for profit. I have already seen the success of the high-density operations in Washington State. So I started exploring possibilities to make inexpensive citrus trees for high-density planting. The trees planted in the field in 1997 grew well. The trees produced fruit in the second year, including Rio Red grapefruit. They grew well until they were pushed out in January 2010 for commercial land use. Microbudded citrus can revolutionize the citrus industry because of the following reasons. 1. You can bud rootstocks in 2 to 3 months compared to 9 to 12 months. You can microbud year-round compared to seasonal conventional tea budding. You can plant even a month-old microbudded tree very successfully in the field, whereas conventional trees take another year or two before planting in the field. Microbudded trees produce fruit in 2 years, whereas the conventional trees take 4 years or more. The fruit is just like your conventionally produced citrus. You can adapt microbudding into commercial high-density planting economically. And it is cheaper. The cost can be a third of the conventional trees. You can triple or even quadruple the number of trees per acre without paying extra. And the most important one, the return on investment would be higher and sooner. It is like an insurance policy against HLB. Perhaps even one more good quality. You may be able to grow citrus on leased land for short-term operations of 12 to 15 years. In fact, there is one grower in Texas doing it now, and there are others to follow the trend. I hope you can begin to see the quartz crystal in microbudded trees. Microbudded trees are now commercially produced in Texas. Microbudded trees are growing well in many parts of Texas and other states in the US, and in countries like China, India, and even in Canada. I hope the US citrus industry will seriously consider a major paradigm shift towards higher density planting with microbudded trees. I hope our citrus nurseries will see microbudding as an opportunity for success and not as a threat to the conventional nurseries. I hope our citrus horticulturists will help citrus industry to make a paradigm shift. With all the above facts and the potential for higher economic return, I strongly believe that microbudded citrus with a high density planting certainly is going to be one of the ways to counter HLB for an immediate practical solution. Ladies and gentlemen, there are many reasons for hope, but citrus industry will have to start thinking differently. There can be changes, and changes for better. You can see more information on microbudded citrus in my blog at orangerevolution.squarespace.com. I thank you for listening. I'm Dr. Manny Skaria.